Many travelers and crews often question what agricultural items are allowed into the United States and what's prohibited. Of course, you can find this information online at the cbp.gov website, but I figure I make this subject a little bit more personable. Today I get to talk with Sharon Binlas. She is a CBP advisor with over 15 years of experience in various capacities within the Customs, Border, and Protection. She shares a ton of information that is very helpful, not only for travelers, but also for crew members. And I get to ask her so many questions that crew members have also asked me, and I figured this is the best way to get you the right answer. So enjoy this episode. You are now listening to The Jet Life Uncovered, an insightful podcast that explores the minds of those who have conquered to live a meaningful life in the air and on the ground. Whether you're a pilot, frequent flyer, or celebrity, we uncover the deep truths of what it's like to live life in and out of the jet. I'm your host, Fernando Contreras, airline pilot, personal trainer, and intervention coach. You're about to take off into a conversation with individuals in which we get to know their intersection between living a purposeful life and reaching peak performance. The Jet Life Uncovered podcast starts now. Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been so eager and looking forward to this episode finally because us as crew members, we have a ton of questions regarding what we can bring into the United States. So thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'd love to know what has been your journey within the Customs, Border, and Protection and the actual purpose of the Customs, Border, and Protection Agricultural Department.
Well, let's first start off with the purpose of the agriculture portion of Customs and Border Protection. Our goal as agriculture is to be that face in the front line that's there to protect American agriculture. Our job is to look and regulate agriculture items, fruits, vegetables, meats, plants, flowers, seeds, things of that nature, and make sure that they qualify to come into the country. Make sure that they don't pose any type of pest risk or disease risk to our local agriculture. In regards to my journey, I've been with CBP for over 15 years now. Initially, my interest with CBP came from doing an internship working with USDA in college. As we all know, after 9/11, CBP was created, and I was looking for opportunity to, one, mimic what I was doing in my internship because I enjoyed it. Two, to be able to have a career or a job where I felt like I was making a difference. And so this was the perfect opportunity and environment. So I applied and I was luckily accepted. With CBP, I started off as a ag specialist inspector, where I was basically that person you met when you came into the port of entries that asked all the questions and went through all your stuff. I did that for a little while. After that, I became, for about 9, almost 10 years, I was a agriculture canine handler. So now I was the person running with the little puppy who now was all in all of your business and looking for your lunch.
It's adorable.
Yes. After that, I actually transferred to Toronto to a pre-clearance port. I didn't know if you know that Customs has pre-clearance ports, which are outside of the mainland U.S., and basically allows for passengers to do all their customs needs before entering into the U.S. From there, I got a promotional opportunity to move to San Francisco and become the supervisor for in that program, which was a great experience, to be able to put more into the program and more dedication into it. After that, I became where I am now, which is the regional agriculture canine advisor for CBP. And so basically I help now with the teams in the field and the offices in the field to help for any needs they have or questions they need or guidance when it comes to the canine programs. And that's my CBP journey.
What a journey. That is so cool. How long was your training when you first started, and then also like maybe during your canine time that you were with the dog? How long was the training for that?
Our first training was a couple months, which was away from our ports in the DC area, where we were trained by USDA, learning how to regulate and identify certain things, and even our interviewing techniques and things of that nature, safety concerns. Then once we came out of that program, we spent a little while at the ports, a couple months, just doing hands-on training and getting our feet wet. For the canine situation, my first dog, when I first went, it was about 8 to 10 weeks of training where basically we went in and we learned how to do everything that we need to do for the dogs, how to teach the dogs how to search, how to take care of them, any health needs, concerns, basically all the tools we needed to be successful in the field. Once that's done, then you do move to the port. Do a little hands-on training for your specific port and go from there. And then for the dogs, the training is always actually, and even for the agriculture specialists, our training is always continuous. It's one thing about this program is if you like to learn, you're forever learning, whether it comes to food items, pest diseases, status, or even just the culture aspect. You know, as agriculture specialists and working with CBP and being that face at the front line, you know, we come in contact with people from all over the places, speaking different languages, different cultures, things like that. And so we have to continuously educate ourselves to be able to be successful in those fields.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not continuously learning, you stop growing at some point, right? I love anything that you're continuously learning and continuously just, you know, being more broad in knowledge. I think it's always awesome. But just like how it's always a constant learning environment for you, it is also for pilots as well. We get tested every year on things, and it's new things come out and regulations change, and we have to keep up with all that stuff too. Sometimes things change based on, you know, like the network communications industry decided to put 5G antennas, and then we had to like amend all our procedures. So it's always constantly something that we have to keep on top of. But I totally understand where you're coming from. But that's really cool. When you were in the training school with the dog, I'm sure you created some sort of bond, because that's a dog that you take with you, right, out on the field. That
is correct. So when you go to school, one of the big things, and one of the things the USDA is great at, is pairing the dogs with the people. My coworkers used to laugh because they were like, my dogs were me. Absolutely personality. They were me.
That's cool.
But that bond is important because you have to have that level of trust between you and your canine partner to be able to accomplish the mission. You know, your canine partner also has to trust that you'll keep them safe. You know, dealing with the canines, one of the things about the dogs is that they're looking to you to be there for you, but they're also looking to make you happy. And they know that the success of what they do is based upon your happiness. So you do get that bond, and, you know, you end up spending more time with them in your work day than you do. Some people do with their own families. You know, it's them and you.
Yeah. And I guess at some point, what's the span of time in where a dog's, I guess, abilities to be able to sniff and just have this high sensitivity to these agricultural things, is there a time span in which it starts to decrease after that, and do they have to retire, I guess, at some point?
Well, I mean, there's always a daily work time span. As a handler, you have to be cognizant of when the dog gets tired, because, you know, they'll not want to stop. Over the time of their career, usually about 8 years old or so, we look at retiring the dog. And it's not always a decline. You know, they do retire earlier if there are medical or health, medical issues, things of that nature. But at the same time, we try to get them to that 8-year mark so that afterwards they can have time to be a pet and rest and relax, just like we do with our jobs and our professions. And then you do see some dogs after a while that it becomes a lot, they do decline, and, it's time for them to retire.
Yeah. Do you get to take them with you? Do you get to keep them when you retire?
Yeah, when a dog is ready for retirement, the handler gets first pick.
Ooh, nice.
If they want to, and it's a little bit complicated. It's a little hard to step away and say, no, I can't keep it. But, people have situations and living arrangements that actually, don't condone them having a dog at that time. Myself personally, I've had 2 canines, and I've taken them both home with me. I just couldn't see myself parting with them.
That's amazing.
They were my partner. They were my children.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. So now you have 2 dogs at home, and that's awesome. Do you miss working with them at the field?
I do. Working with the canines was kind of the highlight of my career First of all, it was a situation where it was one of the only jobs I know of where someone is always happy to see you show up and sad to see you go.
Oh,
And it was, I will admit that after a while, my parents were like, is this really a real job? You're going to work to play with the dog all day? Because our job literally with these dogs is to play hide and seek. People hide the stuff, whether purposely or not purposely, and it's the dog's job to find it. So it was just like a big play, a big game every day. And so that was
my God.
And it was always different. The day was never the same.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. What a journey you've had. So I want to switch gears into the technicality stuff of the CBP. In order for the CBP to be continuously learning and all the advisors and officers, you guys have to work closely, I guess, with other entities such as like the CDC and probably the World Health Organization with what's happening around in the U.S. and around the world too.
Yes, part of CBP is we work, part of just the government in general, we work with multiple agencies to help resource information. Also because we are the face at the border, and a lot of the entities don't have people in that capacity or the staffing able to be there, we also act as a liaison to say, hey, we saw this, what do you think of that, and work, in collaboration with them. Like I said, we also work a lot with USDA to provide us with a lot of information on identification of pests and insects, and then the different trends or things that we need to worry about. So it's a constant team effort.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. My sister used to work for a health department here in one of the states, and she is an epidemiologist. So, understanding on the spread of things and how things can spread so quickly, being trained for that, to be able to pick up like things, especially in agriculture, she deals with more diseases that are spreadable and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's such an important thing because to mitigate that, to be able to control some sort of spread, it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, and a lot of things have to go in place. So I'm sure the training that you guys have to go through is pretty intense, pretty rigorous, I bet.
Yeah.
So are all CBP officers cross-trained in all of these, or do they have separate roles? Like when I go through a crew line, that CBP officer may not be the agricultural officer that I'm going to see later, right?
Absolutely. The person you meet when you go through the crew line is usually the CBP officer who is trained in dealing with immigration and customs regulations. The agriculture specialist is basically what it is. It's a specialty field. The officers do have training and brought aware of a lot of the issues or concerns when it comes to agriculture, but ultimately the agriculture specialist is trained to make that final decision.
Oh, wow. Okay. Gotcha. So, with the agricultural specialists, we obviously have a due diligence to have to declare our food, whether as we're crew or passengers. Is there any difference between declaring as a crew member or declaring as a passenger?
So declaration is declaration. There's no difference between a crew member declaring the process. Some of the forms that sometimes, if you are still using or at a port that's using the paper forms, do look a little bit different. But it's the same as the passenger. We need you to tell us what you have so that we can make educated decisions on if those items are capable of coming into the U.S. or not. The one difference that you do see is that if there is the lack of declaration, the penalties for that are different from passenger and crew. The crew members is a little bit stiffer at $500, starting around $500 for a non-declaration. And that could be as simple as you didn't declare the apple you had, and that's, can you imagine a $500 apple?
It's the most expensive apple you've probably ever bought.
Exactly. And, that has a little bit to do with the amount of time that, crew is coming in and out. So other than that, the declaration's not. The process between traveling passenger and flight crew is not that different.
It's the same, totally. And so, since we're on the topic of declaration now, there's we have our due diligence to have to declare whatever we're bringing in, right? No matter what, we have to declare. But let's say we declare something, but we forgot that we had this apple somewhere else in our bags. Is there, there's a unintentional, my bad, kind of like I forgot that this was here. Is there, do you still get that penalty, or is there any way of like, hey, it's okay, it's your first time or whatever, or it's just straight on, sorry, you're going to have to pay?
Yeah, so declaration is, like I said, important, right? Because it allows us to do our job. We can't really take the time to search every inch of everything, and it is your responsibility as a traveling person to coming in to make sure that you know the items you have, So for the fines, it's kind of a little bit of a slippery kind of question, because if you don't declare, then you are penalized. We understand that people make mistakes. We understand that you guys are busy on those flights, that people are asking you for everything under the moon, or even the fact that a lot of flight crew, especially international, have short jumps. I know when I was in Toronto, I used to see crew members 4 and 5 times a day, making that jump from Toronto to another place, and since it was such a short flight, they were just turning around.
Yeah.
But what I do advise is that, you take account of the things that you have. Don't toss things in bags that you normally do. One thing that I do notice when crew members come through is a lot of them spend the time and have those nice, fancy lunch boxes, So I would advise that you make sure that you keep everything in one location so that, you don't have that stray apple that you didn't know about when you get there.
Right.
And don't declare.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Better to have everything grouped all together, and it just makes it everybody's lives easier. Now talking about the items that we, would declare, and I get a lot of questions from crew members is, what is prohibited or what is allowed in. I normally guide them to the CBP website and go to that that tab of the agriculture department to see what is and not allowed in. Yeah. But is there anything that is like, yeah, this is a definitely go, or this is a definitely no go?
Yeah, so the CBP website is a great place to look under the Trusted Traveler information. It gives you a general idea of the things that are regulated. So it gives you an idea of what needs to be declared. One tip that I will give is it's always better to over-declare than to under-declare. And also maybe even just keep a little notes or a record of what you're bringing so you can present that to the agriculture specialist. When it comes to the items, I will say this: at the moment, there is no pork products allowed into the United States on a passenger or a flight crew level, and that is because of African swine fever that we're trying to keep out of the U.S. at the moment. The other items in regards of what you can and cannot bring are subjective to where you're coming from or where the item's origin is, and the port of entry that you're going into, and sometimes the season in which you are coming into the United States. So that's why it's best to just declare the items and allow us as the agriculture specialists to do our job and make that call. Also, you may go in and be like, okay, well, yesterday this item was allowed. The agriculture specialist had no problems with it. But now why is it 2 days later that I can't bring it? You have to understand that the rules for agriculture change since they're based on pest and disease status around the world.
Yeah, wow. I am having a huge learning curve right now. I didn't know that it was based on so many factors. I mean, even the season, the time of the year, it affects if that food item is going to be allowed in or not, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Wow. So a quick question on the pork. The pork that's not allowed in, is that just like if it's like raw or if it's cooked, no matter what, it's just pork no matter what?
Right now we're looking at a situation where they're not really allowing pork to come in multiple forms. The best thing to do is to consult, if you have a port that you travel through a lot, is to consult the agriculture specialist, and they can give you more updated information. Because like I said earlier, those decisions and those regulations can change on us, at any moment.
Right.
But like I said, with African swine fever, we have to be very diligent, The introduction of these pests and diseases into our agriculture community can cause irreparable damages. Just the mitigation factor to eradicate the entrance of these diseases or pests, can cost the government a ton of money, a ton of time to personnel to be able to do it. It also can cause, an increase in prices, and even worse, a certain insecurity of not being able to have that item.
Right.
Like I tell everybody, do you want to pay $150 for your apple? We got to protect it. We got to
Yeah.
protect it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And more importantly, so just people's health in general, you don't want something to start spreading. Do you have any, maybe of like the last time that there was something that came through the border and it was able to spread? I don't know if through research they're able to track it down that, hey, it came through this port or anything like that, but just to give an example to our listeners and viewers of what's the seriousness of like, hey, if this does cross the United States, how is it going to impact people's health?
Well, we're not looking at too much of, things coming in that affect people's health in regards to, transmitting of diseases and things like that. We're looking at what's affecting the agriculture. So the way that it indirectly affects people's health is that if you don't have, the access to those fresh fruits, vegetables, or the proper nutrients for your diet, that could cause a problem. In regards to what lately has come across, I can't really tell you that. That's actually handled, usually researched by the USDA. Like you talked about your sister being an epidemiologist, that's part of their job so that they could track down where it came from and help plan of action to help mitigate the situation.
Gotcha. So to recap, it all depends on where you're coming from, what port you're entering, what time of the year, and if you want to know more specific information, you want to speak to the agricultural specialist of that port of entry, correct?
Absolutely. Some of the ports do have what we call tear sheets, and they're just little informational sheets that say, hey, these are the items that, are great to come in at this time, or the regulations. And they'll always give you, like I said, that caveat that things change, and they can change without warning. Sometimes, like I said, you come in on Monday and this is the regulation, and then I come back Tuesday morning and it's a whole new regulation, to learn. But yeah, so you can go into those, you can talk to them. The agriculture specialists at the ports are great. And they all have dedicated their time and their service to protecting American agriculture. And we understand that education is the number one way to do so. So they have no problems with answering your questions and providing you with information. We're not here to get anyone. We're not the boogeyman saying, haha, we want to take your lunch away. But we want you to be educated so that you know, one, why we're doing it, and two, how you can help to prevent.
Yeah, and I'm sure at the level that they're at, it's a certain passion that you guys have for what you do. So they're more than happy to be able to share that with you, so that they can pass on what they're so passionate about for other people to be educated on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's really great. So, all these questions that I ask in terms of, I didn't know that it was even from a couple of days that things can change, but we try to do it from a planning perspective, right? Like, I get called for a 4-day trip and it's all international, and I like to take all my meal, because it's just healthier for me and for my fitness. And we just try to plan of like, okay, well, if I know that these things are going to be allowed back in, this is what I'm going to pack on my meal prep. But I guess if things change so quickly sometimes like that, and I don't want people to think that like, oh, because things are going to change, I'm not going to take my food. Because at the end of the day, you just declare. And if you are able to get through with it, cool. And if you can't, then it's okay. Like, at least you tried, So for crews more especially, the message is still kind of do what you do, but just remember to always declare, and always just to have a heads up, visit that CBP website, and also you can talk to your agricultural specialist at your port of entry.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Like I said, we know people have diet restrictions. We know, people want to be healthy and things of that nature.
Right.
But yeah, we have to be open to understanding that sometimes those things won't be allowed in.
Yeah. So we've been mentioning a lot of the declaring. What is the process, and when is it your responsibility to say, hey, I have these items?
So it's always going to be the traveling person's responsibility to declare the items. Obviously, especially if you're meal prepping, you didn't call me and say, hey, can you come over and look and see what I have? So when I come to the port, you know exactly what I have.
I'll FaceTime you real quick. Check out what I'm
Yeah. Also, mind reading, I'm not that great at it, and most agriculture specialists aren't. So, we have to rely on you to be honest and tell us what you have. In regards to declaring, basically it begins, you get off the plane, and when you get to that first CBP officer, of letting them know that you have food items, possibly what you have, so that they can refer you to the agriculture specialist to inspect the items. Also, like I said, some ports of entry do still accept the paper forms. If you are a fan of writing it out on the customs declaration, that's always an option. And if you request one, they'll always give you one. After that, after you finish with the officers and your journey through, since we're talking aviation, through the airport, you will also come in contact with other CBP people. If something triggers and you're like, oh, I forgot about that apple, I didn't tell the officer, you seek a CBP personnel and say, hey, I think I have this. Or, you also get that opportunity when the little dog comes around and sniffs your bag and says, I think you have something. Yeah. After that, once you are referred to the agriculture specialist, they will again ask you the questions in regards to the items that you have, and you will tell them. One recommendation that I do have, as I said earlier, is it's always great to write a list of what you have, because we do forget. And that's also helpful to the agriculture specialist. If you give me a list and I say, okay, you have A, B, C, X, Y, and Z, and that makes the process a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's anything that can make the process faster, because sometimes crew, they're just like, I just want to get through customs and then just go. I got to catch another flight to commute home, or I got to catch the bus to get to the employee lot. So anything that makes things go faster is definitely helpful. But absolutely. And I just kind of want to summarize everything that you just said. It's basically you have multiple opportunities to declare your food, but in just be wary that if you don't, and a dog decides to sniff your bag and you do, be ready for some consequences of some financial penalties.
Yes,
exactly.
There's always that possibility.
Right. So you're risking, if you're trying to get through and you don't declare it or you forget, it is a risk that you might get caught with that stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's always just better to say what it is. And I like that you mentioned that if you forgot about, the apple that you had in your other bag and you already passed the first CBP officer, there's more along the way by the time you exit the airport, right? So you might be like, oh shoot, I forgot. You might be able to tell somebody else, and there's no harm in that,
No, right. Absolutely at all.
Good. I just want all the listeners and viewers to feel comfortable with that stuff, because it's really important. A lot of the times without that knowledge, you might be so scared to be like, oh shoot, I have the apple still. I don't want to say anything to anybody. But then here comes a dog, sniffs it. Oh, there goes $500.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that's really informative stuff, and it's really important for us to know so we can make the best decisions. So there are, I know it's very dependent on a lot of factors, but is there anything special for supplementation? Now, some people take supplementation because their doctor was recommended to them and they have to take this in a pill or powder form, or some people may do it because of their fitness journey, some protein powder. Is any of that restricted, or does that even fall in the agricultural side?
Well, some of the supplements and things of that nature don't fall into the agriculture side, especially if they're commercially processed. Sometimes when you say supplements, you think of herbs, teas, things of that. That can kind of fall on that gray line of agriculture. The one thing that I recommend is that if you are traveling with some type of protein powder, supplements, vitamins, anything of that nature, to try to keep it in its original container so that we know what it is. And then usually those items, if we have questions on their enterability, are given to our customs officers to look into a little bit more. So we're basically dealing with, like I said, the fruits, the vegetables, the flowers, plants, seeds, and that nature.
Gotcha. Okay, but still say something that you have it when you go to declare?
Yeah, it's always better to over-declare. When in doubt, tell us about it.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that, you as the traveling passenger, as the flight crew, are not supposed to know all the rules. That's our job. So if you tell us, then we can better assist you with that.
Right. Now that we're talking about how quick we want to get through these lines and stuff like that, global entry, right? This is more of the newer way to go through customs, and it's very fast. So when is it that you meet an officer at the end of your whole process of you get screened by this camera thing, and then you proceed to the GE officer? There is your responsibility to say it, right? They'll ask also, but there is where, and it's the same process. Once you're like, hey, I got my food, blah blah blah, they'll take you over to the agricultural room.
Absolutely, it's the same exact process.
Gotcha.
And I mean, it doesn't take the inspection time, especially once you get to the agriculture personnel, doesn't take long. And, especially for aviation crew, because you usually don't come with that much stuff. A lot of times it's 3 or 4 pieces, a roller bag. You'll see a lot of pilots that'll have the bags with their manuals, and lunch boxes. Now, if you come in there with 11 million things, be prepared, that it's going to take a while. But it's just a couple minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. So I want to ask some specific questions. Hopefully you'll have, or there will be answers to these, but totally understand if there aren't, because things are always changing.
Yeah.
But some of the questions from some crew members are, can we bring vacuum sealed meals from U.S. brands back into the U.S.? And mostly, these are from meal prepping companies that provide these services.
Yes. So like I said before, there's different regulations, and they are always flexible and moving. With the prepackaged, vacuum-packed meals, just remember that just because they're prepackaged or vacuum-packed, that might not always mean that they're acceptable. The best thing, like I said earlier, is that they are in their original packaging, which gives us all the information, the ingredients, what it is, where it's from, things of that nature, so that we can, look into that and make that educated decision. When we don't have any of that information, that's when we have to take the most restrictive actions.
Okay, copy. So then the next question is, if there are fruits and vegetables where you take out the seed, is it still considered, in the same protocol? Because they don't have the seed, they may not be considered fruit now. It's more of a clarification question, I would say.
Yeah. So even if you take out the seed, it's still a fruit.
Right.
If you have an avocado and you take out the seed of avocado, it's still an avocado.
Yeah.
And so also, with a lot of the fruits and things of that nature, pests can live on the skins, inside, and not just the seed. But it's going to be specific to the item. It's of what it is and if it's going to be allowed. Like I said, there's a lot of mitigating factors to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And to speak with your local agriculture specialists, that's great. And I do recommend, I know a lot of flight crews usually have like a head person at certain ports. And it's always great if they reach out too, and maybe even have their agriculture specialists come and speak to one of their, aviation crew meetings or things like that. And so to better benefit them and give them more information of what's going on in that local area. Yeah.
Yeah. Even in our manuals, we have a little section on the international part that says, hey, you have to declare, you have to do all these things. So, but it would be nicer to have somebody kind of like, hey, there's a monthly, these are the changes that's happened in the most recent time. So that, I think that's a great idea. Now, the next question is prepackaged things. So maybe not from meal prepping companies that it's an actual meal, but like protein bars, nuts, seeds, almonds that are all packaged in there from the USA. That has more of a chance to be able to be like, okay, yeah, this is good.
Yeah, a lot of those things are going to most likely be able to come in when you talk about meal replacement bars, as long as there's, you don't have any pork flavored meal replacement bars, prepackaged things, jerkies and things like that. As long as they have the information that we can look at and see where it comes from, then there's a higher probability that they may be able to, let in, depending on what the regulation is of where you're at. Seeds and nuts kind of fall into that same realm. If they are like roasted, you have a higher probability that they're going to be okay. As long as you're not bringing seeds back for planting or anything of that nature, then you should be fine with that. So prepackaged items, like I said, are great, and the best thing about them is they are prepackaged, and they are labeled with the information, and we see that they're, commercially sealed, so we know that there's no cross-contamination potential.
Right. And just to clarify, when you mention label, for people to understand that a label is something that brings out, like, it has nutritional facts, it has ingredients. It's different than a label that's on a banana that just says made in XYZ, right? That's so that people will be like, hey, no, I have a label on this. Shouldn't it go through? Right? There's a huge difference between what kind of labels we're talking about.
Well, there is a difference, but those labels on the fruits and vegetables, like you see on the bananas and stuff like that, they actually give us some information also.
Oh, okay.
If you ever look at your label on your bananas closely, you'll see that a lot of times they'll have the country of origin they're growing from.
Right.
And that gives us a little bit of a guideline of, okay, well, it's coming from this place, which is acceptable, or this place that is not acceptable. So if you do have that, leave it on there. Same with the apples, avocados, things. A lot of them have those labels. Just double check, see if they have those countries of origin. If they do, leave it on there.
That's really good. That just will increase the chances of it might go through.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Wow, that's awesome, because I've been restricting from taking avocados and bananas, which are two of my favorite snacks to eat while I'm flying. And that's awesome. So I may not have to not take them anymore and just try it out, obviously, by declaring when I get back. There's a big crew or something that crews really love to do, and that's overnight oats, right? It's very simple, but it's the things that we put in these overnight oats. So with fruits and stuff like that, you mentioned to be able to have their original sticker on it, but it's different now when you cut up that fruit and you put it in your overnight oats, because there's now nothing for the agricultural officer to know where that came from. So it's just better, I guess, in my question to you is just better to have everything separate. Don't try to put it all in an overnight container with all these different things shoved in there, because you're not going to have any information on where that came from. So most likely it'll be taken away.
Well, there's always the probability that it will or won't. Like I said, it depends on, different factors. If you can, make the overnight oats and then have the fruit separate in the original containers, that's always going to be helpful. Like I said, the more information you provide us. Also, I would say don't be afraid to bring these items up, with you. Like, say, okay, well, you're flying today from Miami to Brazil, and you want to have your banana or your blueberries or things of that nature. Just make sure that you've consumed those items, earlier on in your travels, so that they're, no longer with you, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
And like I said, and if you do and you don't finish them, then just make sure you declare and let us know, because who knows? It may be okay to come in,
Yeah. As long as you declare it. And so, as we mentioned a lot of the labels and stuff like that, and this is more, I just want to let this person's question come on the air too, but they asked packaged salami. Sometimes when we have these overnights where we or where these pilots and cabin crew come back from Italy, Spain, and all these, they like to bring some salami back in. Again, it all depends, right? Packaged.
Yeah. It depends on it depends on the kind of meat or the animal that it's made out of.
Oh, okay. I see.
So I can tell you right now that if it is salami and it's pork, then leave it.
Most likely, no.
Or buy it, purchase it, consume it on the flight on the way over.
Yeah.
And then don't bring it in. If you do, let the agriculture specialist know that, if you couldn't finish it or you didn't get to it, so that they can make the proper regulatory decision.
Even if it's packaged, okay.
Even if it's packaged. Just because it's packaged, that doesn't mean that you've already eliminated the risk of disease and pests. And then speaking in regards to the canine world, a lot of people come up to us and be like, wait a minute, your dog can't smell it because it's vacuum sealed, or you can't smell it because I wrapped it in 12 feet of aluminum foil. These dogs are highly trained, highly sensitive, and they can smell these things from across the room. So don't take the chance. Don't take the risk.
Right. Wow, this is all super, super informative. So is there any extra suggestions from your perspective? You're on the other side of looking in of what usually comes in, and you've seen so many crews get denied or go through. Any other additional tips that you may be able to give us to make this process just more understandable?
Yeah, absolutely. My number one tips is declare, 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 declare. Like I said, it's always better to over declare than to under declare. Also, as I mentioned earlier, when you are packaging or preparing your meals, things like that, it's always great to make a list of what you have, and then you could just kind of shove that list in your lunchbox so that when you do get to the port of entry, you can say, hey, this is what I have. You may have consumed or gotten rid of some of the items in the process, but yet again, over declaring is better than under declaring. And then to be patient, be patient and be mindful that we're not out here to get you. We're just trying to protect American agriculture, and we have to all work together to accomplish that mission. So, and then also, like I said earlier too, talk to your agriculture specialists. And when you get to those ports of interest, there are a great amount of information and education on what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Oh yeah, and don't bring 11 million bags for us to inspect to be done in 5 seconds.
Yeah, we shouldn't try to make your work harder.
I forgot a couple other tips and advice that I did want to say. Usually when you're traveling on the flights are catered, have catered meals. I just want to remind the flight crew not to take those catered meals off the plane. You don't know what's in them, and they're usually outsourced from other countries. So it's best to either consume, if you are going to consume it on the plane, or not to bring it in at all. And then the other thing that I wanted to share was that, a lot of times passengers think that we're taking their items for our own personal usage. We'll take them and they'll be like, hey, I hope you enjoy my food for your lunch or dinner. Understand that we don't want to eat your food, especially when you've been flying on a 6-hour flight. Those items are actually taken and disposed of using certain methods that are approved by the USDA. So know that at the end of the day, it all goes, it goes away. It's not going to be on our lunch counters.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, Sharon. It's been a true pleasure, and it's outstanding information that I think is going to help so many crew members and also just travelers who may listen and watch this on YouTube as well. Thank you again for taking the time and educating all of us in all these processes for the Agricultural Department.
Yes, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and share. Like I said, I've been into this field a long time. I've seen a lot, and we have to work together. Our goal is to keep American agriculture safe, and you being able to provide this platform to give this information to your colleagues is going to be a very helpful tool for all of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, you too.
All right. Thanks. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I had a great time learning from Sharon today. I did not know that the port of entry really mattered on what food are more or less likely to be allowed in. So that was really, really cool. And also, I will leave links in the description so you have the resources that we mentioned so that you can be more informed on this subject. If you like the podcast, please leave a rating on Apple, Spotify, Amazon. And also, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of these awesome videos. So thank you so much. Play safe and stay healthy, my friends.